Hi, Giant Builders. So, our next guest speaker is going to share how God talked her into doing a podcast. So, this is interesting because he used a pooper scooper to get her to do it. You're going to love the story. All right, let's check it out.
Building spirituality, family, health, and business. This is the Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.
Hey, Giant Builders. So, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Share a way in which God got your attention, because we're going to learn how God got Jen's attention. Good afternoon, Giant Builders. I'm so happy you're here. And as always, please check out our social media, follow us, and leave a comment. So today's guest is Jennifer Zacone. Jennifer, how are you?
Hello, Lois. I'm well. Hello, Giant Builders. Thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So that's always an interesting question because I think we're inclined to say what we do as a role rather than who we are. So I thought about this in preparation, and I am a person that loves God very much, very connected spiritually, and that's always in the forefront of my day. I'm a lifelong learner, always looking for that. I love to laugh. I love collaboration. I love being a part of community and building community. In my work, I'm a mental health professional. I'm licensed in Colorado, but live in Arizona. So I do things telehealth because I used to live in Colorado. And then on the side, similar to you, I started a podcast with a spirituality focus, and it's called Soul Seekers, with the emphasis on how we build the relationship with God through our soul, and recognizing that that is the part of us that lives and dwells with us as God in us and connected to God.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, go a little deeper on your podcast for me.
Sure. So as we were chatting ahead of this, I had mentioned, you asked me if I have written any books, and I've had many that have been inspired, many downloads from God because I'm a journaler, and a lot of encouragement to do that. But in my self-doubt, worried about professionally what people would think of me, worried about being vulnerable, I always stopped myself short. And one of the books that came to me through God to write about was Soul Seeking, about how to be in a closer, more intimate relationship with God. And I had outline and everything, and started it many times, would get so far and then walk away. And then one day I really had a pretty dark day and experience, about like maybe a day and a half of heaviness, and really feeling not upset with God, but really like, I'm done, God. Like when I say dark, really, really dark. And was kind of scared of how dark my thoughts were going, especially because I'm a mental health professional. I was like, this is not good. And so, as is my routine, one morning I woke up, I'm in prayer, I'm in meditation, I'm journaling. And as I'm journaling a lot of anger, and basically having a conversation with God and just saying, I don't like this. I don't know if it's okay for me to say this word, but I was saying, this is bull crap. Pardon me if I can't say that, but that's the level of honesty and sort of like experience I was having with God, just being that raw. And so my dog looked at me and said, it's time for our walk. So I take my dog out for a walk, and across the street from where we live is this property where they raise racehorses. I'm losing the name of racehorses. My daughter has a quarter horse, so I'm thinking barrel horse, but it's the racehorses on the racetrack. Thoroughbreds, that's what it is. They race thoroughbreds. And so I'm walking my dog, and as you can imagine, my energy is low. I'm hunched over, I'm looking at the ground. And all of a sudden I hear this man say to me, good morning, isn't it a beautiful day? And I looked up and I saw him, and he was shoveling, the mucking, basically shoveling the horse droppings and putting in the wheelbarrow. And all of a sudden, I had this like burst of my heart and my mind opening, and this connection with God, where God was saying to me, I heard you. You called it crap. I'm gonna make you laugh. It's not bull crap, it's actually horse. And part of what I need you to continue to do, Jen, is to pick up the things that are hard and to collect them and repurpose them, because this gentleman was taking the wheelbarrow over to the racetrack to smooth out the racetrack for the safety of the horses. I need you to do that. And I need you to also remember that you can still have a beautiful day. And it was so profound in how this came to me in like a shift. And it was so emotional, like I started sobbing. And I continued on my walk, just in this like heart wide open, mind wide open shift of an experience with myself, of really being like pushed. And so as the day continued, I'm driving on the freeway, and there was Bible scripture that was on the back of a truck that was reinforcing, like, just follow me, follow me. And I was literally following the truck, and I saw this message. And so my heart continued to open wider. And my husband came home from work and he said, how was your day? And I said, it was really hard. And I proceeded to tell him how the sort of like despondent, hopeless place I was in and how dark it got. And I said, and I'm really frustrated with myself because I know God's calling me to do work, and I can't live up to his calling. I can't live up to how he wants me to write, how he wants me to express. I just get in my way. And as I was explaining this and the words were coming out, all of a sudden I said, I should start a podcast, because to write about it, I'm so critical, but I knew nothing about a podcast. Like, I could not get in my own way. And I said to my husband, I just feel like there's such an importance in the need for community now, and we have technology to come together in community in a different way, to love, support, encourage one another. And that really, what I was missing in this experience of writing a book was that it was one-sided. There wasn't an interaction with the reader. And that part of what makes me be in the full expression of receiving, connecting, and enjoying my relationship with God is through other people and through connection. And I think that's why I'm a therapist too. and to be in such a sacred space of coming into union together. And so I guess as I spoke about that, I said yes, and doors kept opening. I had no idea what I was doing, how to do it. I'm not a technology person, as you know. And the right people were showing up at the right time with the right information. And when I say right, I just mean like right in the purposeful way, right in I didn't have to know. And I listened to your podcast with Charlene Warren, and she was talking about calling, and she said, you will get called when you're unqualified to do it. And that's exactly what my experience has been with the podcast. And I let it go. I let go of the need of being attached to qualifications. And if I knew what I was doing, if I knew the technology or not. And that was 1.5 years ago. And I continue to be guided and blessed. And that's how I met you. As I said, I prayed, and then I was on my social media, and I saw our community for building podcasts and how you do that. And you were looking for guests. And I was like, maybe there's a sacred reciprocity here where you're asking for this support. I'm wanting to grow and learn. I'm wanting to be amongst other podcasters and grow and learn from them. And so it's just beautiful. It's, yeah, long story, but beautiful.
No, I mean, only God can make a vision of a pooper scooper into a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I got the message. You collect it, you repurpose it, and you have a beautiful day. And I'm having fun. There's so much beauty. There's so much joy. I love who I'm meeting. I love what I'm learning. I love what I feel like I'm co-creating with God, because I feel like what comes through me, around me, who shows up, like it's nothing I could say I could plan. It's a very organic, beautiful wave of love.
Yeah, it really is. And like you, I agree. I think the biggest highlight for me in podcasting is just the people that I meet and how God uses that. It's amazing.
It is. It is.
So I'm curious, who has been someone who stands out in your mind as a guest that you've had?
Oh, that's such a remarkable question. There have been quite the variety, which I love. One of my listeners introduced me to a gentleman who was diagnosed with ALS. And if people aren't familiar with ALS, it's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And it's a disease that breaks down your neural pathways so that you lose your ability for all physical movement. And he was at the point where he was on a respirator. And this gentleman experienced a complete reversal of his ALS. So he was wheelchair bound, incapacitated, could not dress himself, could not take care of himself, couldn't feed himself, respirator, couldn't breathe. And his wife called in a prayer circle with a group of women. And that was the beginning of this shift. In there are quite a few other experiences he had, but through being led towards healers, and then also making space for God to come into him. You know, I think sometimes, at least this has been my experience, I think God is up here and out there. And when I lose my way, I forget that God comes inside of me and is around me. And I think that's part of, he didn't use those words, he didn't express it that way, but that was the way I understood about how he was able to not only heal, but recover and reverse it. And now he guest speaks, and he's written a book. And, you know, he tries to offer that same type of guidance. But the one profound thing that he said, besides his relationship with God, is God taught him how to rebuild the relationship with himself. And that a lot of his getting ill, he realizes, had to do with how poorly he thought of himself. And I already shared how poorly I was thinking about my ability to write a book. But also how poorly he spoke of himself in his internal dialogue. And so part of this transformation into healing was really God teaching him to love himself.
You know, it's so important, but it is so hard. We just can look at so many of the things we do wrong, and we're so blessed that God looks beyond that once we have a relationship with him, that he wants to see all of the good in us.
Yeah. Yeah.
On your paper, you had written down something that my husband says all the time, is that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. What does that mean to you?
Oh, I got goosebumps. It's to remember that, and this is my interpretation, it's to remember that I was created by God, I come from God, I'm always connected by God. And the essence of that is my soul, but I occupy a human experience. And so in this human experience, it's very finite and dualistic, black and white. that I am going to experience myself with limitations and with the full spectrum of feelings and emotions and experiences. And through the free will of being human, I get to decide what that's going to be like. If I'm going to grow, or if I'm going to what extent I'm going to choose suffering, because I feel like another component of we're spiritual beings having a human experience is that in the human experience, when we experience that discomfort or pain, what we're really, for me, what I'm really experiencing is I separated from my soul, I separated from God, I created space and distance. And the more I go in that direction, the more I'm going to suffer. And I can choose to be in the experience of pain, to grow and expand and live more of my potential, which is through my relationship with God, and also this relationship I have with my own soul that's connected to God. Yeah, that's what that means to me.
Yeah, that really connected with me as far as like, often, again, my husband will say, that the closer you get to God, the more Satan's going to attack you.
Mhm.
Why would he attack somebody who's not going close to God? He's already got them in his pocket. He's going to attack those who are growing closer to God. The same with like corporations or organizations or churches. If they're really growing in God, they're going to be really targeted,
Mhm.
and they're going to have to be strong, and they're going to have to pull together as a community to fight those attacks.
Mhm.
So that was great.
Yeah, yeah. It goes along with that, the other quote, that pain will push you until the vision can pull you. And I think that, there's a bridge that happens in that of surrendering that connects the pain so that the vision can pull you, which is God. It's this keep following me.
Yeah. So how does all of this help you through your profession?
I think as a child, I've always been a soul seeker. Like I've always had a sense of curiosity and like wanting a deeper, more expansive knowing of God, and more of an intimate relationship. And so how that plays into my work, I remember being in graduate school and going through my studies, my internships, and very formally being taught multiple times that you don't get into religion. You ask people what their spiritual beliefs are, but you don't get into religion. And that the reason why you do that, and this was back in the 90s, it might be different now. But the reason why you don't is because you don't want to offend anybody. And so my graduate work is I have my master's in social work. And so they take a holistic approach. And so when you're working with people, you're seeing them from a biopsychosocial perspective, but I was always like, but what about the spiritual? Why do we leave that out? And I was fortunate enough, and my life path was such that I went straight from undergrad to grad. A lot of people don't go to graduate school till later, but I did back to back. And so I was at a younger age, newer to adulthood, where I still was very much preoccupied by being compliant. Listen, follow the rules. Listen, follow the rules. Be a good girl. Don't go disturbing the peace here. So I just went along with it, but always in the back of my mind, if I ever go back to school, because remember, I'm a lifelong learner, I love to learn, I'll get my PhD and I'll do a dissertation on the missed opportunity, the missed healing opportunity in therapy about incorporating spirituality. And so as it came about in my life, I went back to school, not for a PhD, but I went back for training in hypnosis to incorporate that into the work I do with clients. And that's where I found the spirituality in that realm, that they made a space for it. Not only did they make a space for it, but they encouraged you to yourself to grow in that way. That way you could help other people grow and expand and explore that more. My experience in exploring my spirituality, I was raised Catholic, and it wasn't always safe to ask questions. It was more like, just follow the rules, just follow the rules. But I was like, but I want to know God more, and I have this question, and there wasn't room for that. And my understanding with therapy and mental health, what I love and enjoy about it is being in the sacred space with people where they're so vulnerable, they're so raw, they feel this sense of, people don't go because life is going good. They go because they feel powerless and helpless. And to be able to be in a space for them to do like I did in my journaling with God, of like writing, this is crap, like no more. And to let people deconstruct what they may have thought or what they may have believed so that they can reconstruct. And the spiritual piece, I believe, is this integration into wholeness, that instead of living as only parts of ourselves, like the good part or the bad part, this bad part showed up, my anger showed up, or whatever that is, that I feel like spirituality brings in this holistic acceptance of the whole self, and that you're loved unconditionally the way that God loves us. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer on how it fits in.
No, I thought that was wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely is a God thing, so it's all good.
Yeah, I do find that my clients that are curious and want to explore that part of themselves, those are the ones that heal and integrate the quickest, and don't need to come back. I mean, and not that it's not okay to come back. I think, I always tell people, you don't have to be in a crisis to see a therapist. You could be in a crisis to just like lay it all out on the table and look at it and evaluate it and ask questions and explore, and not be afraid to do that.
Yeah, but once you get into the point where you actually realize there's higher power there that can also be healing you, then I could see where that would be an open door for people to heal faster.
Yeah, there's a theme that keeps coming up of with clients, and I see it with myself, which is not unusual, of the importance of reclaiming your innocence. And what I mean by that is the innocence in which God sees you. And the reclaiming of innocence and being curious, and the reclaiming of innocence of having safe to wonder about things. I'm not trying to be political here, but I think like we now live with more and more confinement about what we can talk about and questions that we can ask. Like, it's not safe if you truly don't know something and you're curious about somebody that's very different than you. Like, it's not safe to ask those questions. Like, you're automatically judged because you don't know.
Mhm.
And to me, I think that's part of how as a society and a culture we're losing our way in our connection to God, because we are supposed to come into union. I'm different, you're different, we're all different. I have gifts, talents, abilities, resources, experiences different than you. And so what I have not experienced, we come into union and connection to know and experience one another, to grow and learn. And then there's a collective benefit to that. And that's love. We're connected.
I agree with you. I think that we are too afraid to like offend someone.
Yeah.
But also I fear that the aspect of social media has made it difficult for us to have conversations with real people. If I can't type it with my thumbs, then I don't want to say it with my mouth.
Yeah.
So, and that could possibly just get worse if we don't step up and say enough is enough.
Right. And dip your toes, like lean in to I don't know. I am doing this more and more. I don't do it, at all times in all ways because I'm a work in progress, but I lean in. I'll say to somebody, there's something about you that makes me so curious. Can I ask you a question?
That's a good way of wording it.
And because I am.
Mhm.
And I think most people soften and would open to that because I'm not coming from a place of wanting to judge anybody. I'm just wanting to understand. I'm wanting to know what makes you different because I don't have that experience. I'd like to know more about it.
And every person is different in some fashion.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's how we learn and grow and even learn more about God through that process.
1000%.
Mhm.
1000%. Because God is infinite and there's infinite possibilities and expressions of that. And, I feel like what God really wants to teach me has been teaching me. And sometimes I can embody this and sometimes I can't. But because I'm connected to God, I'm created in and through God in his likeness and image, like I am divine light and love expressing as Jen Zacone. And when I really take that in and then I look at you and it's like, and you are Lois, divine light and love expressing as Lois, which is different than me. I live in Arizona. You're in North Carolina. How different is that? Very different. And then when you think about that, and for me, this is, how I try to see people as a soul and not just their humanness. When I think about if there is somebody 180 degrees behind me on the other side of the world, I'm aligned and they're on the other side of the world and they are divine light and love expressing as God way, way, way over there. And how different must they be? Like that brings me into awe and wonder and brings me closer to God because I'm like, how is that even possible?
Such miracles.
It is. It all is.
Mhm. And how wonderful that we can have his love.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, do you have any closing thoughts?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you're creating with Giant Builders and how you're bringing together a community and creating a space for people to explore and share who they are and feel a sense of connection around their spirituality, family, and building businesses. I just think that's so wonderful. And I appreciate that you create a space for that. And that we met and we get to share in this together. And I invite you to be on my podcast if you would enjoy that, if you would like to do that.
I would love that. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't take credit for this because it's just God just led me to do this, just like God, God led you with the pooper scooper. I love that.
Yes, totally. Totally. He's like, you're not going to write the book. Okay, we'll do this another way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It kind of like how many people in the Bible have tried not to follow God's direction?
right. Right.
Almost all of them.
Right.
Well,
Right.
I'm glad that neither of us ended up in a whale.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Jen, I'm going to have all your contact information below, including a link to your podcast. So, Giant Builders, please check out Jen's podcast because it sounds like it's going to be wonderful. I'm going to check it out. And if you want any help, Jen, on how to put them into video, let me know. I'll give you some.
Oh, thank you. I would love that so much. And I want to wish all your listeners blessings and thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, Giant Builders. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.